Welcome back. Ghana is considering selling bonds from China to Japan as the country prepares to issue as much as $2.5 billion in foreign currency debt this year. Last month, lawmakers in the West African nation gave approval for the Finance Ministry to proceed with a debt sale. Apart from selling dollar debt, Ghana is weighing an issuance of Islamic securities called Panda bonds in mainland China and samurai notes in Japan. And Zimbabwe wants mining companies operating in the country to list the majority of their shares on the local exchange as a nation with the world's biggest platinum reserves after South Africa seeks to boost investment. The government says no mining right or title shall be granted or issued to a public company unless the majority of its shares are listed on a securities exchange in Zimbabwe. And South Africa has signed long-delayed renewable energy contracts worth $4.7 billion with independent power producers and the first major investment deal under President Cyril Ramaphosa. The signing of power purchase agreements for the 27 mostly solar and wind projects was held up for over 2 years under ousted President Jacob Zuma, who favored a plan to build additional nuclear power plants. And in recent years, corn has overtaken wheat and rice as the world's most important grain. Corn is a very robust plant which can be cultivated all over the world. The annual corn output is around 677 million tons. The main producer is the U.S., which produces around 41% of this. Global corn prices declined by 0.36% in 2017. However, prices are beginning to rise this year. Now, let's get a sense of what is driving this prices. I'm being joined by a research analyst with financial derivatives company, Adedayo Oguniro. Hello, Adedayo. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we have seen prices of corn in the global market rise for about 10.5% to $155 per ton this year. That's after the 2017 decline. So what's responsible for this?
Okay, basically, just like any other market, we've seen the interplay of demand and supply forces influence price. Before the analysis, what is corn used for? Apart from food for human consumption, corn is also used to feed animals. It is used for ethanol production.
Majorly in Europe, right?
Yes, majorly in Europe and some parts of Asia. So on the demand side of the market, China, we've actually seen a strong demand for ethanol in China, and that has actually reflected in the demand, in global demand. Also on the demand side of the market, we've seen an increase in global meat production, because of increase in meat and protein demand. So, and because, especially pork and poultry, so because these animals are being fed by corn, we've seen that reflect in global demand for corn. So on the supply side as well, United States, which is the world's largest producer of corn, is actually shifting focus from producing corn to producing wheat and cotton. So this is actually raising concerns that global supply is going to decline in
okay, that's why the prices are going up.
Yes, and we've also seen favorable weather conditions in the United States, and that is making the farmers in the country, in the main corn producing regions of the country, are planting less. We've also seen that play out in other countries like Argentina and Ukraine. So the combination of an increased demand and less supply is what has reflected in the uptick in prices.
Okay, so what is the impact of this on Nigeria?
Okay, Nigeria currently has a corn demand gap of 4 million tons. That's around $600 to $620 million. So $620 million as a percentage of Nigeria's total import is just around, say, 2.5, 2.7%. So while the increase in global corn prices is likely going to raise Nigeria's corn imports bill, it's not likely going to have any significant impact on Nigeria's total import bill and balance of trade.
Okay, Nigeria is, currently the 13th largest producer of corn, that's globally. Do you think Nigeria is underutilizing the potentials it has?
Well, Nigeria's current production is around 11 million tons, and that is just about 0.8% of the total global production. So, of course, Nigeria is underutilizing its potential because when we look at it, Nigeria has the potential to double this production. In fact, more than double it. Nigeria can produce about 30 million tons. But another important characteristic of corn in Nigeria is that apart from being a staple, it can be produced in virtually every state, or every state of the federation, including the Federal Capital Territory. But in spite of this, we've only seen production concentrated in some few areas in the northern parts of the country, the likes of Niger State, Plateau, Adamawa State, and like that. So, and when we look at it, these states where production is concentrated they are prone to pastoral conflict. All right. So because of this, these regions are actually producing below their optimal.
Okay.
And in addition to this as well, there's the issue of mechanized farming in US and China, which are the world's largest producers. Okay. The technique of production is much more sophisticated than it is in Nigeria. Okay. And there's also the problem of fertilizers, seedlings, and that. So Nigeria is underutilizing its potential, and much can be done to improve production. Okay,
right. Thank you very much for your time, Adedayo Oguniro. Thank you. Adedayo Oguniro is one of the research analysts with Financial Derivatives Company here in Nigeria. Now, many African countries produce crystals, but not many traders know where to find the best market for these semi-precious stones. One business that ensures direct contact with miners in Africa is Naro, a Toronto-based store run by Nigerian entrepreneur Yemi Wellhauser.
Nigerian entrepreneur Yemi Wellhauser sells gemstones from Africa at a store in Toronto, Canada. She has traveled the continent with her husband, searching for items of value, artifacts and souvenirs since 2002. The couple started Naro, a brand which runs a warehouse and online store selling crystals like amethyst, zoltanite, rose quartz and tiger's eye, among other precious stones. At their Toronto store, the gems are displayed according to size, color type and rarity. Yemi says they are sourced according to Fairtrade guidelines, which promote ethical mining. Buyers want to know that miners received a fair price and that the environment was not harmed in the extraction. By cutting out middlemen notorious for exploiting miners on the continent, Naro is able to ensure these fair trade processes.
We've been going for many years. You know, initially, in order to get to certain people or certain communities, if you're looking for a particular kind of stone, you might need a guide or a middleman. But after going, over and over and over, you do get to the people. And it's just a lot better when you're dealing with the person who's mining because they get the money directly.
African gemstones are popular among jewelry shoppers seeking exquisite and rare crystals set in precious metals. But failure by many firms to scrutinize their supply chains fuels child labor and abuse in artisanal mines. Yemi's clients buy crystals because of their traceability as well as the variety on offer.
Just the fair trade that goes along with it. It's really important to buy crystals that are from Africa, that I understand that come from a place where I'm supporting the country, I'm supporting my culture, and I'm supporting my ancestors, as well as then practicing that here in Canada as well.
Gemstones are also sought after for use in crystal therapy. Some are associated with esoteric beliefs and related religious practices.
I use crystals in two parts of my business. I use it when I'm designing clothes for the clients, and I use it when I'm also selling to the clients as well. I believe that when I use the crystals, when designing, I'm surrounding myself with positivity, I'm surrounding myself with love and light, and that also carries over to when I'm selling the clothes to the clients as well.
Shines beautifully.
Having secured a market and a steady demand for gems, Yemi says sourcing the stones and making sure suppliers get what they deserve remains the most challenging part of the job. Most of her crystals come from South Africa, Namibia, and more recently Zimbabwe. Africa is abundant in gemstones, with about 1,900 gem variations. But limited government support for small-scale miners means that millions are lost through smuggling, and investors remain cautious due to poor legislation.
And that's it on the program. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwabu.